You may recall from Monday, I talked about the man in New York, Ramsey Orta, the guy. He's one of two people that filmed the murder of Eric Garner, and he was subsequently arrested on trumped-up charges, was held in, or is currently being held in prison in Rikers Island, New York. Bail was set at something around $16,000. And there was a GoFundMe that was set up to help Ramsey Orta pay his bail. Well, it seems as though not only was the money raised, but now he's probably still not getting out of jail. The story here, it's a follow-up from the freethoughtproject.com. They report 3 days ago, Ramsey Orta, the man who filmed the NYPD killing of Eric Garner, was beginning to lose hope as he sat behind bars at Rikers Prison in New York. As a high-profile police accountability activist, Orta feared for his life while in police custody, and those fears were confirmed when fellow inmates at Rikers began falling ill because their food was laced with rat poison. To protect himself from similar attacks, he was refusing to eat. And it should be noted that he was refusing to eat before it was discovered that rat poison was in the meals of other inmates. The article here continues. It says, however, after a push from the Free Thought Project, Ramsey Orta was given a newfound hope. Orta's story went viral and was shared tens of thousands of times on social media. The resultant virility has raised over $40,000 as of Thursday. On Thursday afternoon, Ramsey Orta posted bond. However, smashing all of his recent hopes, officials are still refusing to release him. And they have a quote here from PIX11, which is a television station in the area there in New York. They report, quote, the Staten Island District Attorney, Dan Donovan, demanded a hearing to determine if the source of the bail money was permissible. That's in spite of the fact that many of the donors from around the country have given their names, and District Attorney Dan Donovan happens to be running for Congress in the special election for the district made up of Staten Island and parts of Brooklyn that's happening 4 weeks from now. The story from the Free Thought Project continues. This politically ambitious district attorney is single-handedly denying the due process of Ramsey Orta. To make matters worse, there is no judge currently available to hear this ad hoc hearing demanded by Donovan. The hearing will not take place until Monday at the earliest, despite the fact that Ramsey Orta has posted bail. The Free Thought Project reports that they have contacted the district attorney and asked if it was normal for them to not accept crowdsourced bail. They claim they have no idea and can't comment on an ongoing case. They then directed the person from the Free Thought Project to their public relations department. And if you would like to contact Dan Donovan, you can do so via telephone at 718-876-6300, or you can send him an email, info@rcda.nyc.gov. And they put a notation here that says any email to District Attorney Donovan may be sent to info@rcda.nyc.gov and will be routed to his attention. There's also a snail mail address, but I don't know why anybody would do that when they have telephone and email available. The telephone number, again, 718-876-6300. And yeah, I think that people should try to find out whether or not this is standard operating procedure or if this is one of those things where there's a special case for Ramsey Orta, because of who he is and what he did before the trumped-up charges. And again, what he did was he filmed a murder. Not just any murder. He filmed the murder of Eric Garner when Eric Garner was killed at the hands of New York Police Department officers. And then he released the video, and that is not making people happy, especially people that make their livelihood from such things as arresting people and doing unkind things to people that are simply standing on a sidewalk trying to sell loose cigarettes. Now, let's move from this to something else, and that something else is Rand Paul. You may have heard that Rand Paul has announced that he is running for president. He made the announcement earlier this week. The day after making the announcement, he came to New Hampshire. I did not go to see him, although had I known that he sent an email, or one of his staffers sent an email to Vermin Supreme after Vermin Supreme marked on social media that he was attending the event, Vermin Supreme got an email basically saying, don't show up to my event. So, from what I heard, Vermin Supreme was standing outside handing out Vermin Supreme bumper stickers, and there was someone inside the Milford Town Hall that was confiscating Vermin Supreme bumper stickers as people walked in. So had I known that that was going to happen, maybe I would have clicked going just to see if they, Google me and find out who I am and sent me some kind of message to say don't attend. So maybe if he comes back to New Hampshire, and I know at some point he will, I'll RSVP and see what happens. Now, before I get into the actual article here on Rand Paul that I wanted to talk about, I just want to give you sort of my impression of what the Rand Paul apologists sound like. Rand Paul isn't as bad as Romney because he only endorsed Romney in 2012. He wasn't Mitt Romney. And besides, Rand Paul is going to end the drug war by not arresting medical marijuana patients and allowing hemp production to be legal in certain states that have laws where they say that they can do it. But, we're not going to remove marijuana from the Schedule 1 of drugs because, we can't do that. And other drugs are bad, so those people deserve to be in prison anyway. And Rand Paul's going to end the wars around the world by only using the military for humanitarian wars in places like Ukraine and Syria. And, anywhere else he feels like bombing people in the name of humanity. And Rand Paul is going to bring about freedom by being a sheep in wolf's clothing and sheep's clothing, because you got to play the game to lose in the Republican primaries by a little less than what Ron Paul lost. There's more when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker will be available on February 19th. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. There's an Amazon shopping iframe built into the website, or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. That's shop.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. So let me get into the actual article here that I wanted to get into about Rand Paul. It's an article written by a friend of mine, Tom Knapp. He writes, and this beginning with a quote from Rand Paul: "They thought all along they could call me a libertarian and hang that label around my neck like an albatross." That was Rand Paul in 2012 during his Republican primary campaign for U.S. Senate. Rand Paul added, "But I'm not a libertarian." Paul did prevail, beating GOP establishment favorite Trey Grayson in the Republican primary, and then Kentucky Attorney General Jack Conway in the general election. Now he's preparing for a 2016 presidential campaign, and everyone, Paul included, seems to want to forget that disclaimer. But it was true then, and it is true now. Rand Paul is no libertarian. Tom Knapp then asks the question, what is he? Among other things, the poster child for adopting a strict no backsies rule in American presidential politics. Writing in the LA Times, Justin Raimondo of antiwar.com puts his finger on the problem with Paul. Quote, "For the life of me, I can't figure out what he really believes, where he really stands, especially when it comes to foreign policy. Paul wants to avoid war with Iran. No, wait, he's for wrecking any chance of avoiding war with Iran. No, wait, he just wants to negotiate from a position of strength with Iran by signing a letter telling the Iranians that the U.S. can't be trusted to stick to its agreements. Rand Paul supports respectful relations with Russia because, unlike other politicians, he understands that the Cold War is over. No, wait, maybe it isn't over. We need to isolate Russia and punish Vladimir Putin." Rand Paul supports eliminating foreign aid, including aid to Israel, because strings attached to that aid tie Benjamin Netanyahu's hands. No, wait, let's just freeze foreign aid at current levels. No, wait, let's increase foreign aid to only Israel. Rand Paul opposes U.S. airstrikes against the Islamic State. No, wait, he supports airstrikes on the Islamic State. Rand Paul opposes abortion except for when he doesn't. He opposes same-sex marriage except maybe he doesn't. He opposes marijuana legalization except when he thinks it might be okay. Libertarians argue constantly over what it means to be a libertarian. I bet I've heard 100 definitions. All of those definitions describe consistent defenders of liberty. None of them, writes Tom Knapp, none of them describe someone who always says whatever he thinks the crowd wants to hear. Some of Rand Paul's defenders claim he's a stealth libertarian, pretending to be a conservative because that once he's in the White House, he'll reveal his true principles. They're selling a pig and a poke. Buyer beware. Tom Knapp then asks the question, what is Rand Paul? Rand Paul is a politician. He's a chameleon. Maybe he's a panda bear. The 2016 edition of Mitt Romney. You may remember how that turned out for the Republicans. Rand Paul is many things, but one thing he is not is, or rather one thing he's consistently not, is a libertarian, so please stop calling him that. And I cannot agree more. Especially, again, let me go back to the quote from Rand Paul. They thought all along they could call me a libertarian and hang that label around my neck like an albatross. But I'm not a libertarian. And Rand Paul has said dozens of times that he's not a libertarian. He will say, I'm a libertarian Republican, but I don't really know what that means, because basically it means I'm a Republican, but I want to use the term libertarian on my terms, while also saying I'm not a libertarian. So I have absolutely no respect for people that claim to be libertarian Republicans, because one thing that they definitely are is Republicans. And if there is anybody out there claiming to be a libertarian Democrat, and I don't know of any, but if there are, I don't really have respect for them either, because what they are is a Democrat. They're not a libertarian, real libertarian. And I'm using small L libertarian, not capital L. And the difference there is small L libertarian is someone who is ideologically a libertarian. Capital L libertarian is someone who should be ideologically libertarian and is a member of the Libertarian Party. So capital L libertarian is member of Libertarian Party. Those people should be small L libertarians as well. And when I use the term libertarian, I include everything in what I call the libertarian circle, which would be people that are philosophical anarchists, meaning they don't want any state at all. I'm talking about people that are voluntarists, that think that all human interaction should be voluntary. I'm talking about agorists that think that, do the counter-economics thing, and while I don't necessarily agree that doing counter-economics is going to collapse the state, they're definitely in that libertarian area because they don't want state-run or state involvement in the economy. They think that things should be done consensually. So all of those, plus people that claim to be libertarian, all of those are in the libertarian circle. So when I use the term libertarian, I'm including anarchist, agorist, and voluntarist. And when I use the term anarchist, I'm also encompassing all of the variants and shades of anarchism. And that's something that a lot of people don't really talk about, is all the various minutiae of that, because you have the anarcho-capitalist, the anarcho-communist, the anarcho-socialist, the anarcho-syndicalist, the anarcho-primitives, the anarcho-feminists, the anarcho-whatever else you want to come up with. The only other one that comes to mind right away is anarcho-pacifist. And I've actually heard the term anarcho-monarchist, although I don't really know what that means. And I've heard the term anarcho-theocrat, but those people seem to be more theocrat than anarcho-anything. So, maybe you could count them in the libertarian circle as long as they're not trying to, force people to abide by whatever it is that they want to set up. But again, it's one of those things to where it's a broad term. It's a lot broader of a term than what most people want to use it as. Most people, when they use the term libertarian, they want to describe somebody that is either philosophically anti-war, someone who wants to legalize marijuana, or somebody that wants to cut some spending on something. And that's a very vague definition, because that does not encompass any of the principles behind libertarianism. Stay tuned. There's more when we come back on Peace, Love, and Liberty Radio.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month or any amount of Bitcoin per month, thanks to the recurring payment options provided by Coinbase. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Coinbase has more than 1 million consumer wallets and is trusted by over 25,000 merchants, including Overstock.com, Khan Academy, Reddit, and of course, FPP. I trust Coinbase. You should too. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. There's an Amazon shopping iframe built into the website, or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So, talking about Rand Paul, there have been some false headlines about Rand Paul. One of them came from CNN Money. And you would think that the people over at CNN would do some fact-checking before writing an article and publishing a headline, especially such a major headline as to say that Rand Paul is the first presidential candidate to accept Bitcoin. That is not true. It is not true now. It would not have been true 2 years ago. Had he announced his presidency in late 2012 or early 2013, that would have been an accurate statement. But however, because he waited until now to announce his candidacy for president, it is not a factual statement to say that he is the first presidential candidate to accept Bitcoin. He might be the first Republican presidential candidate to accept Bitcoin. He might be the first presidential candidate from either the Republican or Democratic parties to accept Bitcoin. But he is not the first presidential candidate to accept Bitcoin. That distinction belongs to yours truly. In 2013, I actually sent a letter to the FEC, that's the Federal Elections Commission, stating that I would not be abiding by any of their campaign finance regulations for 2016. I will not be accepting cash donations. I will not be accepting checks or credit cards, only cryptocurrencies and precious metals. So, no, CNN, it's not true. Rare.us, it's not true. And I've had sort of a Twitter discussion with one of the one of the writers over at Rare.us, trying to correct him on the factual inaccuracy of his headline. And the response that he sent me was, well, he's the first serious candidate. And I responded, are you claiming that I'm not serious? And then he said, well, he's the first candidate from a major party. And I said, so are you claiming that any candidate that's not a Republican or a Democrat is not serious? Are you contending that libertarians aren't serious candidates? And then he said, well, the libertarians don't have a primary. I was like, well, that's irrelevant. And then his final response was, my point was that the nomination really isn't much of a process for the LP. Wouldn't shock me if Gary Johnson got it again. And I'm not going to be surprised if Gary Johnson got the Libertarian Party nomination again, but that does not in any way, remove the fact that I am still seeking the nomination of the Libertarian Party. It's not, in any way take away from the fact that I am a presidential candidate and I'm accepting Bitcoin. Basically, this guy And I looked on his Twitter profile. He also writes for the Libertarian Republic, which is basically a Republican sort of thing, and they claim to lean libertarian. So, again, this is one of those people to where he just can't admit that he made a mistake. He's trying to weasel his way around to try to basically justify having made a factual inaccuracy. And it would not surprise me at all if this individual, Nick Morpus is his name, would not surprise me at all if he is a Rand Paul supporter and if he is really just trying to do everything he can to promote Rand Paul and doesn't want to be seen by admitting that he made a mistake. He doesn't want to be seen as somehow, endorsing the libertarians or, cowering to, or whatever term it is that you want to use in this situation. The man does not want to admit that he made a mistake. And one thing that's interesting, this is not actually a story that I saw until I was tagged on both Twitter and Facebook about the story, and there were other people that made the initial correction saying, hey, wait a second, no, Darryl Perry was the first presidential candidate to accept Bitcoin. And there's actually a big announcement. I posted this on the website yesterday, and don't try going there right now because I'm moving the website and I'm having trouble. So, don't go to darrylwperry.com right now. Wait a couple of days because there's issues that I'm trying to get resolved with the website. But anyway, I made a post yesterday that I am now accepting over 24 cryptocurrencies. The way that I'm able to do that, and I'm also accepting all of these on fpp.cc and fppradio.com, the way I'm able to do that is through some tool that was created by a company called shapeshift.io. And what they do is they've got this thing to where you send one of nearly 24 cryptocurrencies, and then they do the conversion on the back end, and then they send the receiver Bitcoin. So there's limits on the amount of currencies that can be sent and other sorts of things, but it's a really nice tool so that then the person that is receiving, so you could send me Potcoin if you had some, and I would not have to have a Potcoin wallet. I would receive an equivalent amount of Bitcoin. And as I was talking about on Wednesday during the Ask Me Anything, where I was asked the question about the Bitcoin ETF, and I said, yeah, I'm not really a big fan of it because while people are buying Bitcoin, they're not actually buying Bitcoin, they're buying into the ETF, so they're not really adopting Bitcoin. And in the same way, the shapeshift.io API thing that they're doing, it allows me to accept Potcoin or NXT or Dogecoin or, again, it's nearly 24 cryptocurrencies, but I'm not necessarily accepting them in the fact that I'm using that cryptocurrency. Well, I do have an NXT account. I do have NXT. I like NXT. So, this is not a slight to NXT at all, but to some of these like Dogecoin and Potcoin, it doesn't require me to set up a wallet for that. Find some sort of wallet service, accept it, and then handle it myself. I have absolutely no interest in doing anything with Dogecoin, Potcoin, Namecoin, Litecoin, or, of the 24 that they have, the only one that I have any interest in at all is NXT. But again, I just think it's a really nice service to provide to where somebody can send one of these altcoins and the end user receives Bitcoin. I think it is amazing. And it's one step closer to what I had said a while back is my dream cryptocurrency, to where anybody could send any crypto and it would automatically convert to the crypto the receiver wants to see. So it's one more step.